Good morning. Welcome to Frank's School, 153rd day of the 5th year. First and only video today. Portugal and the Alps. I've spent a lot of time working on giving prequels to a trip which I am going to recommend to you. Well, here is a prequels sequel. I've separated the prequels, the things that had pertinent information, I felt, into three. My first trip to Europe, when I came from Africa, Senegal, and returned home, that was in 1967. A trip to Peru, which didn't directly impinge on Europe, but I felt that it was worth describing for other reasons, having to do with your trip to Europe. And then from Brazil, after 2 years, this was in '69. And this was in 1970. So the prequels have been here, but I think it's worth it to sum some things up. I've been going through old letters and old papers that I have. Finally, now that I'm retired and I have time, I'm going through papers that I haven't looked at for years and years. Just for example, I found a card, the business card of the Pensão, where Joyce and I stayed in Lisbon, which is still there actually, and I may someday, if I'm in Lisbon again, I'll probably walk by to see where that was. So I'm finding stuff. But in any case, what's been clear to me, I don't know if this will help you or not, is that I've lived two lives, really. In a sense, I was born a second time, April 1st, 1974. That was kind of the end of my first life and the beginning of my next life. Around that time, John Denver had a song going, Country Roads, I think it was called. He was born in the summer of his 27th year, I think is the way the words go. Well, it was ironic because in a way I was born in my 28th year. Again, and you know, I have actually, believe it or not, I try to not get too personal in Frank's School. I mean, this is not so much a personal blog as I'm trying to teach, but I think this is pertinent information. That might not have happened. I mean, I might have just gone on with a kind of a continuous, predictable life. Now, I say two lives, each with two parts so far. Who knows what's coming? But when I say two parts, as I look back, and this I think might be quite normal for lots of people, that they have one life up until high school graduation, after which their life changes dramatically. You almost might say that that's normal. So they have one life with two parts, or maybe three or four. That happened for me. I mean, when I graduated from high school, and then it's clear to me that going to college, and I've probably haven't said it for a while, but I went to Harvard and I really did not like it. But I didn't know. I went open-minded thinking I was going to like it, but I found I did not like it. And then for these 10 years, up until this time, was like the second half of that first life. Now, at that point on that day, April 1st, I actually delayed it one day so I'd be able to remember it more easily, April Fool's Day. That was the day that I basically migrated from New England, where my family had been living, and I was born here very near here. I'm Pennsylvanian, but my family had lived in New England for all these years. I came home to what I think of as the third most beautiful place on earth that I've seen, and that is this family farm. The first was Machu Picchu. The second, I felt, is in Switzerland, Valais, although the Alps, they are beautiful in a natural way. But I came home to this place, the family farm. It was empty. It was vacant. No one was living here. I lived here, and by then I had separated from Joyce. She did not want to come here, and eventually we divorced. So here I was living alone with a dog and 5 marmosets, little tiny monkeys that we had brought back from Brazil. I began to substitute teach, And then this part began with that teaching. I eventually remarried. I discovered teaching was my profession, even though I was a carpenter by trade. At the end of this part here was where I learned the trade of carpenter. Well, now, all right, back to Europe. I mean, because I really am talking about Portugal and the Alps. While I was teaching, when my wife quit teaching, just as she quit teaching, we had enough money that I thought we could maybe go to Europe, and I wanted to show her Europe. There was this long pause. I don't know how many years it was, maybe 8. I don't know, that I did no traveling, no distant traveling at all, and I wanted to take my wife. Well, ultimately, I took her twice, and I also had decided I really would like to take my daughter. And she had said at the time, well, that sounds nice, but I'd rather go if there were friends going too. I don't want to just travel with you, Dad. Well, ultimately, I took my daughter on, I don't know, 3, maybe 4, 3, I think, of these trips, and my son on 1, and students as well, put together tours. These were EF tours, and never got back to Portugal in this time because the tours didn't go that way. That's when I went to the big cities in Europe and got to know them quite well. But every tour, I think every single tour that I went on went through the Alps. When I scheduled them, I sort of insisted on that much. Wherever else we went in Europe, we would go through the Alps. So there were 7 trips. 7 trips. One man that you see in Frank School sometimes, Adam, my friend, he was a student and went with me on one of the tours, and he sort of got hooked on Europe, and he's gone back 11 times on his own, by himself. But anyway, that was sort of Second Life Part 1. And then with my retirement, which was in 1911, 2011. What am I talking? 2011. I've begun to realize that really should maybe be looked upon for me as the second half, or at least second part, quite a different part to this life. And during this time, these are all online. I basically, if you want to go with me, I took you along on these trips. I went on a kind of a grand tour against the grain with my daughter Erica, where we went against the grain because instead of from London to Rome or back or something, it was from Denmark to the tip of Spain, but near to Gibraltar and back. That one, it's online. As I say, it's in Frank School. You could find it in playlists. Then the next year, Portugal and Galicia. This I did with Shirley. It's online. Then I went. Then the very next year, I went back and visited 4 northern open-air museums. 3 in Germany and 1 in Amsterdam. It's online. And then 2 years ago now, Portugal with Shirley and her husband Thomas. So that's, I don't know. So each one of these represents a European trip. But here's what I concentrated on, because it was really when I remembered all of a sudden that through all this traveling, here was the best that I could come up with, and would like to do it again. And I'm going to now go on. I think I'll do it this year. I try to go to 180 days, and I feel like there's enough time here that I can do this. I'm going to describe in very great detail, a trip, Portugal and the Alps. Not a prequel, not a sequel, but a trip which I will recommend to you. And if things go well, I'll probably go myself in September of 2017. I have every reason to think that my heart's going to get fixed right up by a fairly minor operation called an ablation I'm going to have. So if my health holds, probably in September, after the peak season has passed, I'll go and I'll take you along, if you wish. I'll meet you in Lisbon and then take you along. So that trip will be coming up, and that should be fun. It's sort of like strike while the iron's hot. I've been thinking so much about European travel and these places that I thought, well, maybe right now I should describe in detail what I think would be a wonderful trip for you, whether with me or not. Just my best recommendation. Bye for now.